This is the addition to systems and business processes. We decided we wanted to do a flowchart, and let's just see if we can find some really good tools to do that on the internet. If you look on the internet and just do a Google search, you're going to see there's about 270,000 different kinds of business flowcharting software, at least the entries on the internet, which leads us to decide, well, maybe there's a little bit different way to do this, and we've already got the tools already on hand. For example, if you have Excel, you're already got a flowcharting software built in. Here we've taken an Excel spreadsheet, and look what we've done. We've listed out what happens in accounting when inventory receipts arrive. And you can see we've decided that the first thing that happens is a receiver, or some indication that the document, that the goods have arrived. A document comes showing that. And then what we actually do in accounting as well, we look to see whether there's an invoice or any other support for this document, this packer or whatever it is that has come in and that we've got in our hands. And then we see whether or not there's a purchase order. And then we review the invoice for the support and whatnot. And then we review the receiver. And then finally we look to see whether the invoice, the receiver, and the purchase order all match. And if they do, then we indicate that and file it by due date. Well, let's see how we would do a flowchart for this very simple process. And of course, we're leaving out some steps here. We're just trying to illustrate how we would do it. Well, one would think that you would go and look for that sort of thing in charts. We're going to do a flowchart, actually. Well, no, it's not actually there. But there's something called SmartArt here. And if you click on SmartArt, you're going to see that there are different flowcharting options. Now, there's many different kind of options in Excel. You can see there's all different kinds of things. You can see there's where we can create lists, maybe for presentations. Here, there's a way to just kind of show a flow of documentation. This might be useful, for example, like pie charts or something like this. Here would be a great little system to use for organization charts. Well, we've kind of glossed over the one we're really looking for, and that would be a processes. And look at the different kinds of processes we have. And here you see a horizontal process where you just a series of steps. And if we look down here, all different kinds of processes, we'll see down at the bottom here a very simple process that looks like a vertical process. So let's use that. Well, we can take this vertical process here and we can just move it over here so we can see it. And then I'm going to move the text pane over here, and look what we can do. We can actually take and put in the different steps. So we'll say the different steps. First of all, the first thing we do is say, is there an invoice? The next, is there a purchase order? Next, review the purchase order. And we'll just say PO. Next, review the receiver. Next, do receiver, or do invoice, receiver, PO match. And finally, file by due date. Well, you can see here that we've actually, as we did that, created a flowchart. So let's go and actually make this a little bit larger. We can take a look at it. Now, at this point, we've documented our steps. There's some problems here, because everything that we see here looks like it is a processing stage. And this is actually a question. So what we want to do here is we'll actually want to take this one and go and change the shape. And this is a decision, so we'll use that. And then we have another decision here, so we'll change that. And actually go up here, change that to be that shape there. Then this process of reviewing the PO, reviewing the receiver, do the invoice and receiver match. That's a question, so we want to change that to be a decision. And we could actually change the shape this way, or better yet, we can just go right up here, get down to our flowchart, and choose the shape we want. And then we've got the process. So we've basically created a very simple flowchart very quickly. Now, we could add on to this and put additional things on there, but you can see how you can use Excel very easily to create a relatively simple type flowchart. But you probably gathered from this that it was a little bit tough to work with all of this. And maybe there would be a little bit easier way to do this rather than actually using Excel. So let's see if we can find some tools that will make it easy. And the first thing I want to point out is that there's a very excellent tool that's available here in terms of FlowBreeze software. Now, this is actually to be used with the Excel. And what it does is it allows you to actually type things in, kind of as we did, and it will create the flowchart, as you see the demo right here. So we can actually take a look at this, and it'll show you exactly how this will work. And now it's going to run a little flowcharting demo software. So you can see this process where you actually can use Excel, and it will enable you to create flowcharts a little bit easier than trying to do it. So the nice part about this is it generates it as you actually start using the product itself. So you can see this is a very useful little tool, and as it's indicated, they have a free sample. The Cadillac of doing flowcharts is the Visio software. And you can see here's Visio. There's a lot of processes to it, and it's quite expensive. For basically a single user, we're talking about rather expensive software here. There are places to buy it cheaper. Here you can see that Visio in the cheapest incantation can be bought for about $300. If we look at the software comparison at top 10 reviews, you can see there's a lot of different software out here, and it's all over the place in terms of price, all the way from about $300 down to here. We'll actually look at some that are almost free. In fact, let's take a look at what Tech Republic said. They offered us some interesting 5 applications that they thought were pretty good for doing flowcharting. Here's one called 1888 Quick Flowchart, and it looks like a very simple flowcharting thing, and it's got some little diagrams here that you can use. There's one called WizFlow that looks very simple to use, very easy to do. Here's one called RFF Flow. It's only $50, and again, gives you all the tools and kind of a grid upon which to lay out your tools. So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of these tools that are available, and they're not that expensive. So we could look here to actually download this, and you can see the nice thing about download.com is it will tell you what the average user rating, and here they give you a free 30-day trial on this, and out of only a few votes, it looks like it was voted pretty high. We can take a look at another software here called YED Graph Charter.
Welcome to YED in 90 seconds. YED is a free yet powerful diagramming software that has been downloaded over 500,000 times. With YED, you can interactively create flowcharts, UML diagrams, family trees, network diagrams, process models in BPMN, and more. Unlike common illustration software, YED brings order into chaos with automatic layout algorithms for hierarchies, trees, networks, swim lane charts, business processes, and more. YED comes with predefined shapes and symbols for flowcharts, UML, and BPMN, but you can also import your own. You can create your diagrams interactively by drag and drop, or import complex data sets, for example, from Microsoft Excel files. Likewise, you can export into a broad choice of file formats, including JPEG, SVG, PDF, XML, and many more. This makes inclusion in your Microsoft Word document or your website a snap. YED runs on Windows, Mac OS, and even Linux. So are you ready for YED? It's free. Yes, even for commercial use. Give it a try at yworks.com/YED. yWorks, the diagramming company.
So as you can see, that's a very powerful tool, and it's the right price. In fact, we went to take a look at what kinds of software were available. We found a lot of really great stuff. Here, one called Lucidchart. Let's take a look at that one. Lucidchart isn't free, but it runs on many different platforms, including Chrome and Windows, and even online. Another good one is called Giphy Diagrams. You can see these all do approximately the same thing. Let's look at a couple of other ones here. Here's one called Diagram Designer. It's available on CNET. It can be downloaded. Price is free. It runs in the Windows environment. Here's one called Omni Outliner and Omni Graphel. These are absolutely high-end programs for the Apple environment. Here's one called eDraw Max. This is also for Windows. Finally, we come down to one that can be used for the Mac called ClickCharts. Let's take a look at that ClickCharts program and take a look at what it does. So here you see when you open up the program, it gives you a little sample. Let's suppose that we wanted to start a new blank diagram. Let's go back to what we had done before. We, first of all, had to ask a question. So we'll put that question right there. And that is, we'll then type in the question itself. Do we have a purchase order? And then we can go down here and answer it just by putting in text and saying yes. And then we'll put in a process that we're going to need over here, and the process will be, let's say, compare to the invoice. Now we'll want a connector, so we'll go down and get a connector, get a straight connector, so we just do it like this. There's our connector. Then we'll need to ask a question. Do terms agree? And we'll want to put a connector in there. And then we'll have over here, put right here, yes. And in the case like that, then we'll put another process. Actually, that's probably not so good. We probably should move that. Move it over here. In fact, let's just delete this. Let's put a new one over here and put it right here. Let's get over here and take this. And delete that. And we'll say right down here, yes. We'll put a connector in now. Process invoice. So you can see how this works out and the various different steps that you would go through in documenting. And this little program is a free program, runs on the Mac. So you can see a whole lot easier than trying to do it originally when we tried to put it in an Excel spreadsheet. This is much easier and actually works out a lot better. So as you can see, there's a lot of different programs that you can use to create these charts. The main advantage we see in the actual flowcharting software, as you can tell, is that you have your symbols over here already for you to use. And sometimes there's many different kinds of symbols that you can get, even like data flow diagrams, UML diagrams, and the general shapes we have up here. So the advantage of these things is they're particularly oriented towards doing these sorts of flowcharts, and they make it a little easier to think. Now, the question is, should we just be writing these steps down first, as we did when we were looking in our Excel spreadsheet? The first thing we did was to diagram it out this way, really, by writing what actually happens. And I think that's the best process. And then from that, we can actually start to create our flowchart. So going back to that little tool that we were using here, the ClickCharts tool, it would be a good idea if maybe we were to have on a separate sheet of paper written down all the different steps and work it through, and then we could actually create the flowchart either using Excel if we wanted to, or a more specific program like ClickCharts.